Hello, I am Nicole Glenn, the co host of the LLC podcast, and it's an honor to introduce listeners to inspiring women who are making a real difference in logistics and supply chain. With the LLC podcast, you'll hear inspirational stories, both professional and personal challenges our guest overcame, how their backgrounds help shape who they are today, and how they empower others, giving back to their communities and often the world. Today is Abbie Nale from Wavepoint 3PL joining me. So, Abbie, so nice to have you on with us today.
Thank you very much, Nicole.
It's exciting. We met at Women in Trucking, so last October, and
Yes.
someone had sent a message and said, "Hey, you need to meet up." And then here we are bumping into each other at the conference. So
Yes.
that's how it goes. Have you gone to any conferences besides Women in Trucking since?
I have. I was at the Food Logistics Conference in Atlanta, and that was an amazing time filled with some powerful women. So, learned a lot and can't wait to attend again.
That's awesome. So
Yeah.
I want you to tell everybody, because when I first met you and from Christy Knichel, I mean, we just waved the Abbie flag and what you're doing. We know that you've been in the industry and you're trying to do a lot of different things, but tell us about you and your
Mhm.
background and what you're doing today.
Sure. So I entered into logistics out of college. So I never even heard about it. I knew obviously that trucks transported freight, but had no idea what was involved until I took my job at Enterprise Truck Rental, actually. So I found myself on a lot of docks and warehouses, not only selling the trucks and the service, but learning a lot about them. So when I was approached with Gillamy, which is an agency for mode transportation, I ended up taking on a position at a brand new agency. So basically, no freight on the board. We started from scratch and we grew that. I was the logistics coordinator, a dispatcher, grew into a billing role, a billing manager role, and kind of learned all areas of the company. And in the last 6 or 7 years, I was the operations manager. So a little bit of HR, a little bit of billing,
Yeah.
dispatching, sales, you name it. I participated and really put my best effort forward. So 13 years later, I took the position here now at Wavepoint. I am the director of logistics and especially focusing on the brokerage and growing not only the customers, but the offerings that we have for our current customers.
That's awesome. It's so
Yeah.
nice to meet people that have been in this space for long. And I love the fact that you keep doing this like upward climb. So I'm hoping that people that are listening, or I actually went to UNT to go speak with Sharon Sire. She's another co-panelist here.
Yeah.
And we're trying to like get the word out to some of these students, male and female. We need more people to enter into the space, but
Yes.
just to show people that, climbing that ranks is something that happens in
Mhm.
logistics more and more and more, right? As we keep
Yeah.
talking about that. So when you were in it, you started 13 years ago. No, has it been longer? You said 13 years, right?
Yeah. Well, 13 years at Mode. And
Yes.
so now I started here in August. So
Okay. Okay.
cruising on.
So you've seen the industry really in that transformational stage from when it
Yes.
was very heavy, heavy male to now.
Oh, well, yeah. When I would dispatch trucks and, reach out to different dispatchers, the truckers, the shippers, and the receivers, I hardly ever spoke to another woman. And now I think the playing field is really leveling out. I
Mhm.
have some of the best customers are other women, and they're very, very supportive in that role as well. Because I think a lot of other women have been through these same positions and have, entered into this world of logistics that they most likely weren't familiar with until they found themselves at that job or, signing on to something they maybe didn't even know what they were signing on to. So, yeah, but now we're seeing so many women and different platforms like the Women in Trucking and food logistics. And, even the TIA are allowing people to network in these areas as well.
Yes.
So we're finding our own place to
Yes.
in this world.
I went to the Air Cargo conference last week, and what was so cool to me was they had a networking session for women. But when I walked in, I looked around, I'm like, there's as many men here.
Yeah.
And what they were doing was, I mean, we're having this, they're having a panel discussion, and the men that were in there were like supporting this
Yes.
concept for women to really lift and climb for themselves in their career and in our space. So it's very, very exciting time for people to be entering into the space, male and female. We have so many open roles. But
Yeah.
this last question, like talking about how you stepped in and watching this evolution, it really leads into my first question for you with leadership, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the idea of how do you feel, or do you believe that men and women really have an equal opportunity to contribute to their workplace in logistics?
Yeah. I definitely think that there's equal opportunities out there, but whether or not there is awareness is the question in my regard. There are a lot of times where women feel like they're not 100% confident in a role. And because of that, they're not stepping up and asking for that opportunity, or, throwing their own hat into the ring for that opportunity. I think that as we grow and we gain confidence, that we'll start to do that more. But the opportunities are out there. We just need to make sure that we're pushing ourselves to enter those opportunities and to participate.
I agree. I say that all the time. I'm like, don't worry if you don't check 9 out of 10 boxes, even if you have
Right.
7 or 6, you
Mm-hmm.
never know what the other contenders have. And so hearing that, I'm like, I agree so much.
Well,
Yeah.
that's important. Yeah, that is so important.
Yep.
Yep.
So
You
I
need to
don't
be
know
your
if you,
best advocate.
for sure. And finding sponsors that can help you too, alongside of yourself being an advocate. That's a possibility. So I don't know if you saw the Women in Trucking put out, I think it was this past week. There was an article and a blog post about queen bees, right? Um, I don't know if you haven't seen it, go to Women in Trucking, go on their LinkedIn page. It was a pretty interesting article in regards to like women stepping out in this space, right? And
Yeah.
so it leads me into one of the next questions I have for you, which is queen bees. In your experience, have women been more supportive of other women, or have they actively held them back?
I think for the most part, women in this industry specifically are very supportive of other women. And I think there's kind of like a change, in the universe itself where women are sticking up for other women and, supporting them and building them up instead of breaking them down, which is huge for anybody's success, to help build that confidence. But yeah, some of the best relationships that I have built are in this industry with other women who I would, consider queen bees as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the phrasing of bee has changed in a great way, right? So
Yes, that's a
someone
good point.
someone has called me a diva the other day. And she said, here's my diva. And she said it like that, right? And I
Yeah,
was like, you don't use that word anymore. Like that's associated to something bad, but you could
right.
be a queen bee. It's all right. But diva, no.
Yeah, not a diva. I agree. But
Yeah,
queen bee, that's awesome.
I agree. So I agree with you in regards to the supportiveness. And I'm hoping that we continue down this path, right? So I'm
Right.
just kind of running down these lists because there's so many questions I want to ask you, but covering the idea of like people entering into this space.
Mhm.
So we're watching young women walk into logistics, maybe internships or even getting their first role. And even looking back in time for yourself, like what's the one thing that you would teach young women that are entering into this space that's impacted you?
Oh, I think networking. Honestly, I think networking was the kind of the foundation to my career taking off from just working, grinding away at dispatching to finding where I fit in this, community, and also growing my talents, getting involved with other people in the industry, whether they're on the intermodal side, the truckload side, software side, any angle, learning more about what they can do, getting to know them on another level, I think has been huge for the success that I've had so far.
So in that, say we have people who don't really know how to do that. Like, what sources did you do and how did you really start that foundation of your networking?
Well, just looking up different seminars and events that are going on, whether it's local to you or something like the Women in Trucking, women travel from all over to go to that event. But trying to get around like-minded individuals. And I know a lot of it is just mentioning to either your boss or to peers in your own office that, hey, I want to network. I want to, get more involved, because there have been other men that have reached out to me and asked if I could go meet with women that are in their company. A woman that is used to seeing men all day, let's introduce her to me, in this case, and just kind of talk shop, just see where they're at, see where they can go, see if I can suggest, ways for them to take their career to the next level too.
For sure. Conferences are great. Networking. There's so many different chambers. I mean, we're seeing transportation clubs popping up in all the different cities. Yeah. So with that too, like, what do you do for networking virtually? Like, how have you started that process?
Well, I do prefer in person, but I think that all networking starts with putting yourself out there. So whether you start a conversation with a group of people, that might be in the same, LinkedIn group, and start an open conversation and get something going on that front, or joining groups that currently exist and becoming either part of their committee or on a panel. I joined with Next Gen Trucking. Their whole model is getting different aspects of the logistics industry out to younger kids, in middle school and high school, before they're making their decisions on what do I want to go to school for, or what do I want my career path to look like. Getting out to them and saying, hey, there's this whole world of logistics. You can do, diesel mechanic, there's logistics, there's warehouse, there's software when it comes to building different tools that we need. There's so many different angles.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Yeah. And that's key to start as young as possible. I mean, when we were kids, we were going in and hearing about just police officers and firemen and
yes,
kind of the foundational roles that happen throughout the country as, the backbone.
Yeah.
To hear that that's even happening is really cool.
It is. And that's what I always say. The first time I heard about logistics, I was out of school.
Yeah.
I had one class that was required for my business degree, and that was supply chain. So, and it was the LIFO, FIFO, the last in, first out warehousing model. So it wasn't even true logistics, because the freight wasn't going anywhere besides being in that warehouse. So yeah, I definitely think there's a lot of ground to be made up, and getting ourselves into those middle schools and high schools and colleges would really impact the industry in a positive way.
For sure. For sure. So from your networking experience and beyond, because some of this is not even from networking, have you been able to encounter from that, or even prior in your life, a mentor that's made an impact on your future and career?
Yeah. So my mentor is Christy Knichel. She is actually local to Pittsburgh as well. So it's been an awesome opportunity to not only, meet and learn from a like-minded individual, but to see her and be so close to her and lean on her has been fantastic. It has, helped me make huge decisions in my career, and was an ear just to hear what I was going through, and she would offer me advice, very, very valuable advice.
So
I highly suggest having a mentor.
I agree. How did that come about for you and Christy?
Well, I met her very briefly at Women in Trucking probably 5 or 6 years ago. Then really didn't have a connection at that point just because it was a very brief meeting. But I ended up going to a local Pittsburgh event. It was the Steel City of Freight. And a few of the drayage companies and logistics providers in the area, we all met together and spoke about ways to get more people aware of logistics in the community, some of the local colleges and schools. And Christy attended, and her and I kind of kicked it off from there. We hung out after one of the meetings and just talk shop, and it all grew from there. So it was a good timing on my part, and an awesome, relationship grew from it.
No, she's my mentor too. She's one of
yeah.
So we share that in common. She's, amazing, and she's so willing to give that time to people and talk through that. And I always thank her profusely. And she's like, I learned from you too. So it's one of those things that, she's just outstanding with that. So, from having a mentor, I know you said that you were able to talk through some of your life decisions, but what is the most helpful thing of it that has helped you propel, in what you're doing? Out of one thing, give me one. I know you threw out some things, but what's the most impactful of it?
I think her helping me find my confidence, by really telling me, no, you do know what you're doing, go out there, you've got it, you know how to do those different things, and encouragement. So,
she's really good at that.
Yeah. And I think what was really cool is that she also opened my eyes to, our businesses might be competitors, but really we're all working on the same goal. And there are so many opportunities for us to collaborate and to work together. So I think that's important too. And, she doesn't withhold information to me. And same goes, with me to her, but that's important. She's sharing all this valuable information willingly. And so I think that's important.
Did you, for our listeners who might not have a mentor, did you ever formally ask her? Because I think that is a kind of a thing that's out there that people feel that they actually have to approach it that way, schedule the calls. What is that? Not even with just Christy, but in your mind, how does that work for people who are trying to get a mentor?
So really, I wanted to meet with her and see if, our relationship would work in terms of, is she on the same wavelength as me? Can I learn from her? She's already making these strides in her career. Is that something that I want to follow suit? And so making sure that we are a good match in that sense. So making sure that the person that you want to have as a mentor really has the same values and goals. And I did ask her, I'm like, so are you okay with this? Because I do want to be able to ask you those questions because I value your opinions. So,
yeah. And there is the formal, informal. So it's still good, to ask and say, hey, I would love to see this cadence. I remember when I didn't have anybody, I had kind of authors and YouTube, John C. Maxwell. I always talk about him as, I used to joke around and be like, he's my business boyfriend, because he would teach me so much, and he'd be a mentor to me really through audio listening and stuff. But at first I just didn't know how to approach it without it being awkward, So I'm like, do I have to tell them I'll call them once a month on Tuesday at 10 a.m.? So I didn't know, for you, how you overcame that, because to some people, it sounds like no big deal, right, Abbie? It probably wasn't for you because you had that connection with Christy, but some people really struggle with that and they don't know how to approach it. And so that's why I kept kind of honing in on you, how did you do it? Did you feel weird? Like, was it okay? Because it's
Yeah. Well,
something, it's,
you have to put yourself out there, you
yeah.
know? And we were in the position where we were already kind of picking each other's brains. So I, you know, was valuing that and figured we were on the same page in terms of, you know, the friendship and, you know, a professional friendship too.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, that's cool. Because I just want everyone to understand, like, there's no right or wrong with this,
Right.
it's what feels good and what feels right. So I want to hop in now and like understand more about your career. Myself, I've always been in small company. I
Mm-hmm.
know that sometimes large company has a different mindset or even different industries, but there's this concept of a jungle gym and a ladder. And so it's like moving up, right? Has
Mm-hmm.
your career been really a ladder or has it been a jungle gym all over the place? And I'm going to give you two questions at once. Can you explain your path, including your range of jobs or the career you've had? So
Sure.
two and one at you, Abbie.
Yeah. Well, I do think it was kind of a jungle gym in the sense that I did bounce around to different positions within the company. But now that I'm with Wavepoint and have the director of logistics title, I feel that where I'm at now, the next step would be a ladder move. You know, the next step would be up. I've really fulfilled and learned and handled all the positions that are in a typical brokerage. So for me, it's just about learning and getting more experience and being successful where I'm at now and getting myself ready for that next position.
Yeah. So you're saying basically like when you start off, be ready for a jungle gym because it's downward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very well put. Yes.
Yeah. I can see that too. And then
Yeah.
eventually it changes. Have you worked at certain size types of companies or has it always been like the same type of model or has it been any significance and difference in between your
Well, I want to say similar size because we have started out small enough where there's no set mold of where we need to be. So we have that flexibility to add positions as we grow and as the need comes about. Both companies were pretty small, but ended up being big. So I have this one projected to end up very big.
Yeah, and that's intimidating for some people to think and jump into something like that.
Mhm.
So in your jungle gym, to your ladder, right?
Right.
How did you develop? And I know this hasn't been thrown at you, but I would love for our listeners to understand the confidence to step into small and then craft your way up to a bigger vision of it.
So I think that the biggest determining factor for me to take on this new position and to step out of what I participated in and what I grew to kind of start over again in a way was that I like to continually learn. And at Wavepoint, we have over 50 trucks on the road. So they're both like a regional and over the road operation. And then we have over 14 food grade warehouses. So those were two new things that I've always wanted to add into my arsenal, basically. So when I go to sell, you know, I can sell the trucks, I can sell the warehousing, and then I can sell the brokerage for anything that goes beyond what our assets can handle. So we do LTL, truckload, and intermodal in that sense. So for me, it was taking the next step and having more tangible resources and a new approach to selling.
Yes, I can see that. So just that going back to what you originally said, continually learning
Mm-hmm.
and applying yourself to something. So then that leads me to want to understand kind of like the fear factor of things, right? And we keep hearing this concept being thrown out. We won't dive too far into that of imposter syndrome, but we'll talk about fear.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if you think this is a characteristic of females over males, but why do you think people, women or women and men, are driven so much by fear in their professional lives?
I think For me personally, fear is something that I can usually push through. I think the main things that would make it hard to push through is like the fear of not having an income and not being able to support me and my family. But when it comes to walking into that meeting with, the CEO and owners of a company, I feel that I can talk the talk. I can talk the talk and I can walk the walk. So it has taken me quite a while to build that confidence, and that confidence helps me overcome that fear.
Are there any things you do or talk yourself through when you hit those moments of fear that have helped you?
Yeah, a lot of times I have to remind myself I've been in this position before or a similar position. I can do it again, or what's the worst thing that can come out of whatever that situation is? Really, you just got to go for it. A lot of sales reps I have or new employees that I tell them, okay, you got to answer that phone. That seems to be a huge challenge. But
Yeah,
it's like, you got to rip the band-aid off. Just answer the phone. And once you
right,
answer it one time, you'll realize that there's nothing on that other end of the phone that you can't handle.
right.
So I'm sitting next to you, answer the phone, pick up that phone, make the call,
And making it so nonchalant that it's not like awkward, right?
Right.
That's part of it. So if if everything was gone, and it's like you could do anything at all, what would you do if there was absolutely no fear in your life? What would that be?
Oh, no fear. I would love to open my own brokerage or trucking company. I think that would be fascinating. It's really what I enjoy. I love moving freight, but I also want to instill some of those things that I think is necessary in a company too. Um, Customer service is very, very important. And like I say all the time, there's a million different brokerages, but what sets us apart is our customer service. And a lot of times that relationship that I build with a customer allows me to, you know, get on a first name basis, get in there and understand what it is that they need, what they're shipping, how I can help them. Let's come up with some solutions, whether or not I'm personally handling the freight or not. Let's come up with solutions and to kind of wrap my arms around them completely.
Mhm.
So being more of not just a brokerage or a transportation provider, but an all inclusive, you know, extension of somebody's logistics department.
Yeah, and that is challenging to do. And
Hmm.
the concept of running your own brokerage it is a big fear factor
Oh yeah.
because there's so much on it. And it's funny because I talk to so many people and you've stepped in it to where you realize it's not just night and day easy.
Right.
I'm not trying to discourage anybody from starting their own business. Like you'll figure things out as you go. But once
Yeah.
you actually step in it and start running someone else's business, and then building upon that, it's a challenge,
Hmm.
it takes work. It takes busting your butt all the time to do
Yes.
that, and
Yeah.
it can be lonely. It can be a lonely spot, even though you might have 50 people on your team. It's a lonely thing because every decision that you're making, and
Right.
so that's the thing. So even when my team, and I'm not trying to, give glory to my team here, but anytime my team makes a mistake, which they do, right? We're human.
Right. Yeah.
I have to take ownership of that. Like it's
Hmm.
ultimately my fault. And I'm sure you feel the same way right now, don't you?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Yes, I do. And that's part of the process right now is building that team that I can instill some confidence in to make decisions. A lot of times when people say, "Hey, Abbie, what should I do?" I turn it around and say, "What do you think that you should do? Tell me what your thought process is." Because 99% of the time, it's the same thing I would do.
hmm
But building that confidence so that, you know, they have some equity into that decision that was made and they can stand behind it and defend it.
yeah.
So,
So last thing I want to ask is your company hiring?
Yes, we
Okay,
are
so
hiring.
this is a great platform. I mean, obviously you'll see a strong leader and a spot. So if you are in the Pittsburgh area, and are you guys adding virtually to your team?
No, definitely in-house right now. I think a lot of the brokerage needs is having everybody collaborating together. And sometimes you just miss out on hearing some different industry changes that you wouldn't hear if you were working remotely.
Yep.
So it's not to say that it wouldn't happen, but in the growth phase, we need to get everybody on board and in the same office.
So any listeners that are looking for a new opportunity, Abbie, Nale is hiring. So again,
Yes.
we would love to have people contact you. I did take note that you're all over LinkedIn, so people
Mhm.
can find you by looking you up and sending you messages. And Abbie, thank you so much for joining us today. I hope that, I told you to go quick.
It did go quick.
Yeah. And I hope that people get excited to hear your story because it's really a good one. So thank you so
Oh,
much
thank
for
you.
sharing with us, and look forward to seeing you keep climbing those ladders throughout the industry. It's awesome.
I will. Thank you so much, Nicole. I really appreciate it.